FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
But there wasn't really a comprehensive critique of the of liberal jurisprudence. There wasn't sort of a center of gravity to really move the court to the right until the Reagan administration, until Ronald Reagan came to Washington and Edmund Meese became the Attorney General, and a group of very intelligent conservative lawyers came to Washington with them and decided that they weren't going to just sort of criticize one decision or another. They were going to sort of create a new agenda, a conservative agenda. And so what was it? Expand executive power, end racial preferences intended to assist African Americans, speed up execution, welcome religion into the public sphere, and above all, reverse Roe versus Wade and allow states to ban abortion. And 1981 was also the time that the Federalist Society was founded. Now, a lot of people talk, the Federalist Society was a group, of conservative lawyers got together. A lot of people, for example, Nan Aaron, talk about the Federalist Society as if it's like something out of the Da Vinci Code, that it's like really this scary, right? I mean, no, it's not, it's not a secret organization. It's just an organization of conservative lawyers. And in fact, liberals belatedly have recognized that there should be a counterpoint, and there is. There's the American Constitution Society, and it's thriving, and it's a very big and growing organization. But I think what's important to remember about the 80s is that it was a time of great conservative ferment and energy, and I think this is something about what Obama was talking about when he got into trouble, talking about where Ronald Reagan galvanized a lot of people to think differently about issues. And who were, of course, two of the brightest lights who came to Washington, the young lawyers who came to Washington to be conservatives and advance the agenda. They were, of course, John Roberts and Samuel Alito. And there's no mystery. I mean, as the Alliance has never tires of pointing out, there's no mystery of where they come from and what they believe. I mean, you remember these came out during confirmation hearings. Samuel Alito in 1985 in the Solicitor General's office, he wrote, "What can be made of this opportunity to advance the goal of bringing about the eventual overruling of Roe versus Wade?" Later that year, applying for a promotion in the Justice Department, he wrote, "I am particularly proud of my contributions to recent cases in which the government has argued in the Supreme Court that the Constitution does not protect the right to an abortion." I mean, is there any doubt about where he stands on these issues? I mean, this is not a mystery, and it's not a mystery about Roberts either. But the conservative right through the Reagan years was more conservative than the Nixon years, but it was not what it became. And if you look at Ronald Reagan's appointments to the Supreme Court, the fact that the party was moving right, but not yet as far as right as it became, is very much reflected. And Ronald Reagan in the 1980 election made a campaign promise that Jimmy Carter didn't even make. Reagan said, "I am going to appoint a woman to the Supreme Court, I promise." So when Potter Stewart unexpectedly announced his resignation early in 1981, right after Reagan was inaugurated, Reagan said to his people, "Find me a woman. Find me a woman." And they had to look pretty hard. There wasn't a deep bench of Republican women qualified to be on the Supreme Court. And so they couldn't even go to the highest court in Arizona. They went to the intermediate appeals court in Arizona and found Sandra Day O'Connor. And that was Reagan's agenda, more than overruling Roe v. Wade, although in theory he was against Roe. I mean, he had other ideas about what the party should do. Now, in 1986, when Berger stepped down, he promoted Rehnquist and named Antonin Scalia to the court. Very conservative justices. But the key moment, really, in fact, a key moment in the history of our country, I think, came the next year, 1987, when Lewis Powell resigned. Lewis Powell had really been the key to the court. mean, he was a slightly overworked term by journalists, the swing vote, but he really was the swing vote on affirmative action, on abortion, on death penalty cases, and he quit. And Ronald Reagan named Robert Bork to replace him. And for really the only time in my lifetime, the country really had a national conversation about what the Constitution meant, because Bork really couldn't run away, or he had such an extensive record. He didn't believe that the Constitution protected a right to privacy, and he said, the Civil Rights Act he had said it was a monstrous thing, and the Senate, which was then in Democratic hands, they voted him down. They said, too conservative. I mean, that's really what that vote was. That's all it was. I mean, it was no allegation of corruption or anything, but Bork was simply too conservative for the center of American politics in 1987. And that seat ultimately went to Anthony Kennedy. And the reason Anthony Kennedy was appointed, and the reason he was confirmed, is that he was more moderate than Bork was. So when people say Kennedy's some huge surprise that he's turned out to be not as conservative as Scalia or Rehnquist, that's not true, because he was appointed knowing that he was a more moderate justice. And again, that's a reflection of the politics of the time. And once Powell left, it was really O'Connor who took over the court. And from 1987 to 2005, when she left, the Rehnquist court was in many respects really the O'Connor court.